5 mid-market strategies to grow your business in Europe. Europe looks like one market. It isn't. 27 legal systems, 27 employment frameworks, and companies expanding without a strategy often discover the cost later. If you're a mid-market company scaling into Europe, these 5 strategies determine whether expansion becomes leverage or liability. Mid-market companies rarely fail in Europe because of ambition. They fail because of structure. Expansion usually begins with momentum. A customer asks for local support. A competitor hires in Berlin. A sales leader suggests opening the Netherlands. And suddenly, hiring begins. One contractor in Spain. An EOR in Germany. A direct hire in the UK. Each decision made independently. Country by country. Hire by hire. No unified framework. And over time, the structure becomes fragile. Costs compound. Compliance risk increases. And leadership loses visibility over how the European workforce is actually structured. Scaling in Europe isn't just a market problem, it's an operational architecture problem. So, if you're a mid-market company, typically between 200 and 2,000 employees, these are 5 strategies that create sustainable European growth. Strategy 1. Choose your first European market. Strategically. Many companies choose their first European country based on sales opportunity alone, but hiring complexity varies dramatically across Europe. For example, Germany has strong worker protections and complex termination rules. France has strict consultation and employee representation requirements. The Netherlands offers a highly international workforce, but specific employment structures. Southern Europe may offer lower labor costs, but stricter contractor enforcement. Choosing the wrong first market can slow expansion dramatically. The best expansion strategy balances customer proximity, talent availability, regulatory complexity, operational cost language, and time zone alignment. Your first country often becomes your European operational template. Choose carefully. Strategy 2. Use the right employment model for each market. In Europe, companies typically hire using 3 structures: contractors, employer of record, EOR, owned legal entities. Each has a role. Contractors provide speed and flexibility, but misclassification enforcement is increasing across Europe. Authorities often apply substance over contract tests, meaning regulators examine how someone actually works, not just what the contract says. An employer of record allows companies to hire employees legally without creating an entity. This provides rapid market entry, local payroll compliance, reduced setup complexity. But EOR carries a per-employee margin that compounds as teams grow. Owned entities provide full control and lower long-term costs, but require legal setup, governance, and administration. The key insight is simple. These models are not interchangeable. They are stages in an expansion lifecycle. Strategy 3. Build a workforce model before hiring. Most mid-market companies hire in Europe reactively. A sales opportunity appears. A hire is made. Then another. But without a workforce model, expansion becomes fragmented. Different countries, different vendors, different contracts, different compliance exposure. Instead, define a European employment framework before the first hire. That framework should define when contractors are allowed, when EOR is preferred, when entity creation becomes necessary. For example, contractors to short-term, project-based roles, EOR to early market entry, entity to long-term strategic presence. This prevents inconsistent hiring decisions across countries and gives CFOs predictable cost structures. Strategy 4. Plan the transition from EOR to entity. EOR is often the fastest way to enter a European market, but it is rarely the long-term infrastructure. As teams grow, the economics shift. Most companies begin evaluating entity creation when headcount approaches 10 employees and a country revenue becomes material. Local leadership is required. Custom benefits or equity plans become necessary. At this stage, entity establishment often becomes more efficient. But the key is planning the transition early, not reacting after the team has already scaled. Well-structured companies define entity triggers in advance, such as headcount thresholds, revenue milestones, strategic importance of the market. This avoids rushed legal transitions later. Strategy 5. Align people, finance, and legal. From the start, European expansion decisions often fail because they happen in silos. Sales identifies the market. HR is asked to hire. Finance sees the cost later. Legal reviews contracts after decisions are made. But successful expansion requires cross-functional alignment. People leaders design the employment model. Finance models long-term cost. Legal evaluates regulatory risk. Leadership sets the strategic priorities. When those functions collaborate early, companies avoid fragmented decisions, and expansion becomes deliberate rather than reactive. Companies rarely lose money in Europe through a single mistake. They lose it gradually through misclassified contractors, duplicate vendors across countries, unnecessary entity setup, inefficient EOR usage, legal disputes around termination. These inefficiencies accumulate quietly until the European workforce becomes expensive to manage and difficult to unwind. Europe is not one market. It's a network of independent employment systems. For mid-market companies, growth depends on structure as much as opportunity. The companies that scale successfully do three things well. They choose markets strategically, they apply the right employment model, and they build a framework before hiring begins. Expansion isn't just about entering new countries. It's about building infrastructure that can support growth. Because scaling in Europe without structure is just expensive experimentation. Scale deliberately, scale compliantly, scale with strategy.